This is the Criterion Creeps podcast, and tonight we're talking about The Importance of Being Earnest from 1952, directed by Anthony Asquith. The tagline, RJ, for this film: They don't come any wilder than Oscar Wilde's classic comedy of manners, morals, and morality.
What does that mean?
It doesn't come any wilder than that.
What does that mean?
It's going to be off the hook.
I failed to see the connection here, Jarrett.
Algernon Moncrief, Algie to his friends, is surprised to discover that his affluent friend, whom he knows as Earnest, is actually named Jack Worthing. Jack fabricated his alter ego in order to escape his country estate, where he takes care of his charge, Cecily Cardrew. Cecily believes that Earnest is Jack's wayward brother and is keen on his raffish lifestyle.
What?
Raffish.
What does that mean?
You'll have to ask Letterboxd.
Okay.
Algernon, seeing an opportunity, assumes Ernest's identity and sneaks off to woo Cecily. Cecily.
Is that where they go in this movie? Cecily.
That's her name on the estate.
Did I even watch the same movie as you? Like, what?
I sure
What are we
so.
talking about here? Okay.
Well, RJ.
Yes.
First up, the second part of the full title of the play, The Importance of Being Earnest, is a trivial comedy for serious people.
What does that mean?
Are you a serious person, RJ?
I've been called worse things by better people.
I also want to mention right now, my chucklehead co-host RJ was supposed to read The Picture of Dorian Gray, but failed to do so.
I think it's better that I didn't, because I fail to see the connection other than the author. But I think there will be a better time to read Dorian Gray.
Okay.
Will there not? When is League of Extraordinary Gentlemen in the Criterion? What spine number is that?
It's going to be spine 1000. You just you just spoiled it.
I spoiled it for everyone?
Yeah.
There's got to be a better time to watch Dorian Gray. Is there any other Oscar Wilde stuff in the Criterion?
Like what do you think is going to be coming along?
I don't know.
Exactly.
That's what I'm asking.
Okay, well, the reason why I thought it was relevant is because that is the only thing of Wilde's that I've actually read, and I also consider it one of the best books I've ever read. That Oscar Wilde, RJ, I feel is a clever motherfucker.
A what now?
A clever motherfucker.
Okay. Well, why don't I just read that book on my own time and I can talk about it on the show?
You could have. It's an easy read. It's real smooth.
I didn't see it for the last month.
Yeah.
I couldn't get
except for every week.
Well, on the internet, that doesn't count.
Yeah. Nothing counts on the internet, right?
Yeah. I'll tell you what. I think that the only appropriate time for me to watch Dorian Gray would probably be the Monterey Pop Festival, because I think that it goes hand in hand together, and that's not too far away. That's 2 months away.
Oh, goddamn.
Okay.
So, my real introduction to Oscar Wilde was Picture of Dorian Gray, because beyond pop culture references to this Oscar Wilde character who gets brought up as amongst the great literary figures, was actually the Cerebus comic by Dave Sim, who's actually a character in that comic book series. There's a graphic novel in that series called Melmoth that recaps a fictional version of Oscar in the storyline, but also delves into the biographical detail and kind of the ill fate of Oscar Wilde in reality, which I don't know how familiar you are with Oscar Wilde's life.
I'm familiar with quotes,
yeah,
and I know Oscar Wilde and Alexander Pope. I know that they are heavily mentioned in the Da Vinci Code, your favorite book and movie. One of them is, at least. No, I know Oscar Wilde a bit.
Yeah.
I read
how his career and life was destroyed because of homosexuality.
I've heard
of the Victorian times not taking kindly to it and going to jail for being a degenerate.
Still happens today, man.
I know.
They used to sterilize you for that 30 years ago.
Yeah, there's some messed up things going on in this world still.
So
yeah, that's kind of just some very brief touching upon the things, I guess. When the original play actually debuted, the mother of the young man that Oscar Wilde was in a relationship with, was it Lord Alfred? His mother showed up basically to like make a scene, like here's your flowers, which are just like rotten vegetables and fruits and stuff like that. And then she was blocked from coming in, and but yeah, word started getting around in the lofty world of the London scene about this debauched Dubliner, and yeah, then basically this play didn't get a whole lot of legs at the time, but is now regarded widely as a one of the great literary works. I've never read it before, so this was like my first experience with it, and it's always weird because like I feel like when watching a play without having read it before is really tough. I find that like even like back in high school, it's always nice to have read the Shakespeare material before watching the movie because you kind of know what the beats are.
Do you think that's maybe why the teachers do that?
I think it's. Well, I mean, I think they do it so you like learn to read and going through the prose and read it. Then you get to watch the movie version
as a treat.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I think it's just padding actually watching the movies, but I get it. You know, it's a real long, exhausting job being a school teacher. Anywho. So, yeah, the one thing I wished I had when I was watching this was subtitles, just so I could, like, follow along with, like, the speed of which the, like, delivery of the dialogue is given, because there is, like, so much stuff flying at you, material-wise, and it's, like, kind of like, at times you're like, what's the characters' relationships? Like, because there's, like, there's, like, identities, and, like, they're very, like, tossed around, very fluid, and it's, like, that's sort of, like, the whole gimmick is that like people are just changing their names here and there, and they're also going by the same name, and then there's confusion thinking they're marrying the same person, and what scandal. So anyway, yeah, this movie, what do we got? We got a star here. We got that Michael Redgrave. You remember him? You remember him from The Lady Vanishes, don't you, RJ?
Who is he in Lady Vanishes?
He's like the main guy. He's the male lead in that.
I didn't recognize a single person in this movie, so you can fill me in on that.
He's like probably the biggest star. Michael Dennison, who plays Algie, he's like pretty small. Like he never really broke out into like American films. And like, I was looking through his filmography, and it's like, oh, I haven't really seen any of this stuff. The Edith Evans, who plays Lady Bracknell, this is like kind of like probably her most famous role. It's like probably like she's like kind of like the most iconic kind of character that came out of this, and like as far as performances and like a lot of performance, I think there's like a quote from like Ian McKellen saying like this, it's like one of like the for like in British acting terms, it's like one of those like big roles that people always talk about, where it's like it says
like a Macbeth type deal.
What?
Like one of those roles.
Well, that's the play. That's the Scottish play, RJ.
Yeah, but I mean the character Macbeth.
Well, this is an actress's performance of the character rather than the Lady Bracknell character being this iconic thing. Edith Evans' performance made it, as opposed to Macbeth. It's like, well, what did he play? It's like, no.
He was the lead of Macbeth, Jarrett.
But, I mean, yeah. I guess jumping ahead a little bit. The Lady Bracknell character, Edith Evans in this, she is like the like portrait caricature of like the British elite snob, like horror show woman. Like she's perfect. Like she's absolutely everything you want in that character packed in condensed. Because this person exists. These people still exist. If you go to Merrill, London, England, and travel around, you'll see these people still around. Because it's like even though at one point they were young and probably hated these type of people, they grow up to be like this at some point, I'm sure. Anyway, so yeah, RJ, what are your thoughts on buttered bread and cucumber sandwiches?
Was that your whole build?
No. I was asking. That's one of my notes here.
You know what? You never actually mentioned if you like this movie or not.
Well, I'm not.
But I don't
I'm
care because I'm going to hit you with my opinion first.
I'm not done yet, but I'm just asking. What do you think about buttered bread and cucumber sandwiches?
Just buttered bread?
Yeah, or either or both.
Okay, well, actually, it's funny you mentioned, and I'm not making this up. I had as a snack last night 2 slices of bread with butter on them, and I actually salted it on top a little bit. And I know what you're saying. you salted buttered bread? And it's like, yes, because we buy the unsalted butter. And I like the graininess of that salt right on top.
What kind of salt?
It's that it's like the Costco brand rock salt that you crack on like the shaker is a cracker.
Oh.
You know what I mean? It's like a pepper grinder but for salt.
Fresh salt.
Fresh salt, baby. Is there anything better in the world than fresh salt? So I do like bread and butter. It's one of my favorite snacks.
But do you fuck with cucumber sandwiches?
Never. I do not fuck with that shit. I don't like cucumber sandwiches. I had it one time in my life. I see it in movies all the time.
All the time, you say?
All the time. Cucumber sandwiches. Cucumber sandwiches. I don't know if it's a British thing or if it's like a pretentious thing, but I've seen it all over. When I was in China, everyone's like, "You want to eat some cucumber sandwiches?" I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about? What else is going to be in that sandwich?" They're like, "Nothing."
And then you ate it all.
I didn't. You eat whatever you can eat, but you know.
There you go. Okay, so movie directed by Anthony Asquith, who also directed one of our creep faves, Pygmalion. So this is like, 15 years later or something like that. It's 40, yeah, something along those lines. And again, with plays, so this movie opens up with like a setting up of like we're going to watch a play, and then fortunately it breaks from the like convention that Henry V was damned with, which was like, hey, it's going to be like a big old play for like almost the majority of it, and then it'll break into like a real movie for a little bit, and like this is just like far more palatable to watch.
Is it because it's like 5 seconds of a play at the intro and then 5 seconds
at the very
of the play
very
at
end?
the
Yeah, with great relief. But and the movie doesn't feel particularly play like something like The Magic Flute, again, where it's like, oh my god, the trappings of this just like kill it dead. Like it feels like a movie that like it just acknowledges, hey, this is a really famous play, we're going to do an adaptation of it. But the film also isn't like particularly cinematic, I don't think. But it doesn't feel like it's dragged down by like a staginess to it. And then what you're left with is the I guess you want to call it the screenplay, the play itself, which is the writing and the dialogue of the characters that like are just like a tour de force of like just like content. Like you're just like constantly listening to these characters just talking, and like there's just so much to get through as far as like how they're saying and expressing themselves, which is like why I think reading like Oscar Wilde is like more digestible than like listening to it, because like there's just so much stuff, like you'll catch some of it and be like, oh, that's a good line, that's good. All the actors do their job, like they all like do what they're required to do for the thing. But yeah, I don't know, I kind of like this is fine as a movie. It's not like a amazing movie or anything like that. I'm kind of curious to hear what you thought about this movie, but also because I know that you watched the 2002 version of this movie with Mr. Firth.
Yeah, I'll get to that eventually.
Yeah, and so I'm kind of curious how that experience all plays out. But yeah, I mean, like most of my like notes are just kind of me copy and pasting some lines of dialogue from the movie that I think are just great. But I mean, it's like, hey, a hot take, Oscar Wilde's a quotable dude, and he said a lot of, and he says a lot of pithy things that are like, that's pretty amazing that this guy like, I mean, one of the jokes like that people kind of talk about with Oscar Wilde though is that like he's a guy that like he's really smart, but like he repeated himself a lot, like so he'd be at parties all the time, and like he would just like always have the right thing to say, but it's like he might have like, you know, hundreds of things to say, but it's like the same 100 things, and it's like eventually you'll kind of hear the same kind of comment.
It's funny you say that because I always say this as a joke, but I feel like people say that about this podcast a lot.
Yeah.
They got 100 good lines, but they use and they cycle through those lines all the time.
Yeah, it's maybe about 6.
Yeah, we're not 100. Like you're at maybe 10. I think I got 2 butts and dumps. Yeah. I think are my go-tos.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was actually the one thing I forgot to mention earlier when talking about Lego Batman. Is the movie talks about abs and butts.
Ooh.
So I mean that's some real RJ material right there.
Probably be into that.
Yeah, I think you might be more into that movie than I was. Anyways, yeah, most of what I have here is just like talking about dialogue, this is like kind of
Sure.
like this is the thing that didn't get brought up last week when we were talking about Royal Tenenbaums, because we all love that movie, but that's a comedy at the end of the day, and like that movie's like wonderful and easy to talk about, and it's one of those things where we've talked about with comedy where it's like it's hard to discuss in like a meaningful way, and here we are talking about a comedy play, and it's like, well, how do you talk about this thing if it's not like absolutely like speaking to you in a direct way? I mean, there's like the obvious things where it's like, yeah, this movie is it's a farce. It's dealing with like the pretensions of like Victorian England, the era that it lives in, and it's still like timeless. Like a lot of the material still is there. It's like it's so well written that like you can still appreciate the humor in it and stuff like that, and the writing and like the ridiculousness, because it's like it's like a ridiculous story about like the punchline of the movie. It's like it's hilarious because it's the goddamn title of the movie, and you know it's coming. You're like, oh my god, and then they actually said it, and you're like, wow. But I don't know. Hey RJ, what did you think of the importance of being earnest?
All right, Jared, I'm gonna hit you with some stuff here.
Yep.
So I really liked your comment about how reading these things are different than watching them, because I think that this would play way better as a book that you would read than it does as a play. I understand that Big OW was he was a big time guy. People love him. People love his words. People love his plays. I gotta say, this importance of being earnest is very much not my thing. What I think he's really smart, Oscar Wilde. There is definitely lots of quotable dialogue in this thing, but kind of like what you said too, is some of it comes at you so fast that it was hard to keep up with a little bit. Not like as a big dum-dum. It's like, I don't understand. I was like, it's a lot to take on. And it's one of those things where it's like, some of these characters are so smart, and because he's all of them.
Yeah.
And it shows, but I think it would be a lot more accessible as print than it would be as dialogue.
Well, see, like I think what I was getting at is like, I think it would be a benefit to read this first and then watch the movie.
Agree.
And so this is like funny because it's going back to this thing that we were talking about earlier in the episode about like having to read something before watching a movie and having context. But I think there's like, I think even like going to see a play, I think it's like a thing to like read the play before you go to see it, because then you actually get to appreciate the performances, and you're not so much focusing on like what happens next. Like I even think that like rewatching this movie, if one was so inclined, you would get some benefit out of watching it a second time, because you would actually
did that.
Yeah.
I kind of did that, and I know what you mean, and like that's what we were saying before, like when we were addressing that review about context and stuff. I get it. I'll be the first one to admit, like there are movies that you can appreciate more when you understand the context of it. But my big thing is that like, if that is the total linchpin to enjoying the movie, then I feel like that's kind of a bad thing. And I don't think that you need to read this to enjoy it, but I do think you would benefit from it. And I think that is a big thing. Like, because I've gone to plays, and some of the plays I know the source material, and then going into it, you see more than the average spectator. But you have to consider that there's going to be a lot of people who it's like that's their first time, like their first exposure to that content. So like that's not something like artists and creators, they're not going to like consider that, where it's like this is going to be, it's like I'm going to write this play and then eventually there's going to be a movie about it, and people who are watching that movie for the first time won't have read the play, so I got to make it accessible to them.
Well, it goes, of course, with, like, not. Well, I mean, that's the same territory as like Shakespeare. Like as like it always benefits to have like I think to have read this stuff and then watch the film. Like if that's or like I mean, but some people are like, well, you weren't allotted that opportunity. Like in 1602, when these plays were actually being written and played, like no one was like having access to like the the parchment that this is written on. I don't think most people were just watching it and they're like getting their whatever thrills out of seeing this thing for the first time, but then they could go see it multiple times because that's all they had, nothing else better to do. But now it's like when do you, like, the way we digest information, we're so trained to like want immediate results from what we're watching, and we want that to like translate in a particular way. That's just kind of like how we're trained now as viewers. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It is kind of just what it is, and like how much effort we put into changing how we digest information and process it. It's like it's completely up to individuals.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you, Jarrett. But anyways, I was just kind of saying that was my feeling throughout this thing. So I don't think it's bad. Like, I think it's definitely a very well written play because, like I said, Oscar Wilde's super smart, and a lot, like so much of his stuff is very quotable. I think my favorite was with that crotchety old lady, and she's talking to the guy, and she's like, "Who's your parents?" And he's like, "Well, I don't have them." And she's like, "To lose one parent is like a tragedy. To lose both is what does she say?" She's like, "That's." See, I'm already flubbing up his stuff, but she's just like, "That's fuck, what is she?" She like she hits him with a jab. She's like, "That's just like irresponsible."
Yeah, that sounds.
It's something like that. Hold on, I'm gonna find it for you because
let me throw it some here. I got it. Okay.
To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness.
There you go.
So that was the one when I was watching. I was like, "Ooh, shit!" I was like, "That's pretty funny." So there's a lot of quotes like that. Yeah, he was super smart and he really knew how to write. So I like all that stuff. But watching the movie, I was just, I don't know. I was just kind of not into it. And it's not, I was in a good mood. It was nothing like that. It wasn't one of those nights at Cabiria. What is that? Nights of Cabiria deal where I was just like, fuck, I was in a bad mood and I couldn't enjoy that movie. Salty. It wasn't that. I put it on and I was like, let's see what it's like. And then I was like, yeah, I was like, this isn't going to be for me. My first note was, oh, good. Because there was
watching the movie.
Yeah. Oh, good. Because there was like people talking to each other in the setup. And I was like, oh, good. Nice. My timestamp, Jarrett, was 20 minutes. Because I was like, all right, where are we in this thing? And it was like 20 minutes out of 90. And I was like, whew. I was like, oh boy, this is not going to be for me.
I think I did a little bit better. I think I was at like 35 minutes because I was kind of curious like about the pacing of the act structure because I knew it's a 3-act play, and I was just kind of like curious when those moments hit, and I was like, okay. And then like it's got about this much further to go because I think I had other things I had to do that afternoon. And I was like, okay, we're doing good. This is going along, and it feels like it's a serviceable film, I think, and it's like
it's fine to watch. It goes by totally fine, and like that's what I mean. I don't think it's a bad movie or anything. I didn't take anything from it, and that's fine. Whatever. Some people might really like this, and I don't hold anything against them. But I was just watching it, and I was like, I'm not really into this. Like I get that it's like a satire.
No, it's not a satire. It's a farce, RJ.
It's a farce. It's a farce of a fart. Yeah. Or something like that. So like I get that, and there's certain things that are like so tongue-in-cheek on the nose, but there are things there is like the lady's life goal was to be in love with someone named Earnest, and it's like, oh boy, that was his fake name, but it's not his real name. Do you get it?
But it is his real name.
But it is his real name. And then you're like, okay. And then even like what you said, the like the real light bulb moment at the end, it's like, I truly understand the importance of being earnest. I was like,
that's the big gag. It's right up there with, but who are the real cannibals?
I
don't know who did it better, Cannibal Holocaust or Oscar Wilde. Who nailed the final line of a film better?
Nobody knows. But
well, I do.
Well, you do. I gotta say though, I forgot to mention this at the start. I never knew what the importance of being earnest was about.
Yeah, I mean,
and I'm going to out myself here.
No, I honestly didn't really know either.
But it's a title that I've heard and a phrase that I've heard forever. forever just because that's how it is. It's so wildly popular.
Yeah, it's an expression that like people use, and it sounds because it's very lofty, and that's kind of the idea.
So I gotta be honest with you. I got a confession here. I know it's
you don't know how to read.
I don't know how to read. That is also true. But I know it's not this movie because I know that movie and I know what that movie is about. But when I always heard of Importance of Being Earnest, I always associated it with a different movie. And I was always like, oh yeah, Importance of Being in Earnest is like this movie. For some reason, and I don't know why. And that movie, Jarrett, was Weekend at Bernie's. Because for some reason, I thought Importance of Being Earnest was about pretending that a dead guy was alive, and that dead guy was named Earnest, and there was some kind of morality lesson that you learn from pretending that people who are dead are alive. And I know that that's
weird.
Absurd. I know that that's wild, but this is I don't know. Is this a 90s upbringing? Like, what is this?
There's like an Alfred Hitchcock movie, The Trouble with Harry, which is like kind of like what you're describing.
Where it's like you're confused about something.
No,
you think
but it's like it's about having to get rid of a dead body, and it's like an inconvenience. And people keep having to like dump the body, and then someone else finds it, and then they have to get rid of it.
Okay, that makes more sense.
But so not at all. But not in the least.
I don't know what it is. I always thought Importance of Being Earnest was Weekend at Bernie's, but the original for some reason. I don't know why. I really don't.
I thought you were gonna throw out like you were like thinking this might be like a precursor to like Ernest Saves Christmas, and Ernest.
Oh well, I know.
Stupid.
I know all about Ernest P. Worrell. Yeah. He's one of my most cherished idols. Mm-hmm. I love Ernest.
You love Jim Varney?
I love Jim Varney, man. He was the coolest. He was taken away from us too soon.
True.
Too soon. Ernest Scared Stupid is a very, very good movie, but we'll talk about that in Creeptober. So anyways, there were a few notes I had from this. One note was, so orphans are bad? ? I think they were shitting on orphans at some point.
100% orphans are
a lot of garbage people apparently. I also wrote down big dick energy tea scene. So that tea scene with the ladies having tea is
that was rad.
Just a masterpiece of passive aggressive.
But I love the payoff though of if you allow me to quote, "You have filled my tea with lumps of sugar, and though I asked most distinctly for bread and butter, you have given me cake. I am known for the gentleness of my disposition and the extraordinary sweetness of my nature, but I warn you, Miss Cardrew, you may go too far."
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I like those quotes, and that scene is really good. I couldn't help but think in that scene where I was like, I feel like if they did this now, Emily Blunt would be one of these characters. For sure. Almost certainly. It would be Emily Blunt.
I'm sure she played it in high school or something.
Probably. Yeah. So there was that. One quote that I may have misquoted here, but if the way I heard it, I thought it was really funny, was he said, he died. He exploded.
Oh, yeah.
And someone was like, exploded. And he's like, oh, yes. It was like, certainly so. And I was like, that's really funny. Exploded. I like that quite a bit.
Yeah.
The only other thing is, like, I got a little lost in this because
I did too.
The one thing that really lost me was they have a real soft intro into the orphan thing where it was like, I was left in a bag. And then it was like, ooh, okay. And then like an hour later, it's like, yeah, a handbag. And then an hour later, it's like, I left a baby in a handbag one day. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And I was like, was this the plot this whole time?
Miss Prism? But the thing is, there's no possible.
Did I miss something?
No, you didn't, because there's like no possible way that like everything ties up so neatly. Because that's hence RJ. It's a farce. Because that's kind of the movies, like plays like this can be gimmicks, and that's like the thing. It's like when we watch movies, we're trained so much that that's bad. Like in the era of YouTube videos with these like fucking losers that just rail on about like plot holes. The idea of these are like, it just makes them so angry, and so like we just don't want those things. So when we encounter them, it's like, what the hell is this? Am I missing something? Am I the fool? It's just like a trope, I think, of the type. Yeah, you're not missing anything. But yeah, there's definitely like, I was confused at like, what's going on? What's the actual story happening here? They're like, they're friends, and the guy's like pretending to be somebody else for some reason, and the other guy's going to go by his name. I'm like, this is never going to work, because they're going to find out. And sure enough, that they're outed. And then at the end of the day, they're like, well, okay, well, we're going to get Christianed, and then everything will be okay. And they're like, well, I mean, if they're willing to get Christianed, I mean, they must be good dudes. And then that's all it takes. Because again, farce. But
this whole movie is like, if I could summarize it in one like symbolic thing, it would just be like the wah, wah.
yeah,
it'd be like that sound, because it's like that's what happens all the time.
Yeah, but a little bit better written than most wah-wah material would be.
Yeah, no, it's well written and stuff, but it was funny because when I watched the remake, I was like, hey, Andy, this sounds like an Andy Picks. And she's like, what is it? I was like, two guys get entangled into their friends, but they use each other as secret identities, but not themselves. And then they fall in love with other people, and then their lives get crossed. It's romantic comedy. And she's like, yeah, that sounds like my thing. And she's like, what else? And I was like, it's a period piece. She's like, nah.
So
I'm not in that.
My mental image is Homer Simpson like disappearing into the bushes.
Yeah, and it was just basically like, because I watched it last night, and she was totally on board. And then I was like, oh yeah, it's a period piece, and it's this, and it's like the dialogue from the screenplay from like when Oscar Wilde wrote it. And she just kind of backed away out of the room. She's like, no thanks. And I was like, okay. Wow. Okay. So, anyways, I don't know what else you have to say about importance of being earnest, or Weekend at Bernie's Part 1.
Yeah, or part like the prequel.
Yeah,
part
zero.
Versus Bernie's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, I'll throw some lines at you that stood out for me. All women become like their mothers. That is their tragedy. No man does, and that is his.
Oh, that's sad.
What do you make of that? What do you make of that? It's a weird line, and it's like,
I think it's that more men need to be like their moms, like more, like more caring, more soft, like that real motherly quality. But they're not. Most men grow up to be macho mans, and it's damaging. But women,
women.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I don't know. It's a tough one, Jarrett.
It's a good line.
Things to think about.
Never speak disrespectfully of society, Algeron. Only people who can't get into it do that.
So once you've made it, accept the rule.
Yeah. Hate is going to hate. Or it's
true.
Or it's like Groucho Marx about not wanting to be part of any club that would have him.
It's true.
What else we got here? I'll bet you anything. What is it? Yeah, I'll bet you anything you like that half an hour after they have or Jesus Christ, that's whoa. This is some copy and paste weirdness.
Whoa.
I'll bet you anything you like that half an hour after they have met, they will be calling each other sister. Women only do that when they have called each other a lot of other things first.
But Jarrett, can you imagine that eventually it does happen?
It happens exactly like that.
Call me sister.
It's very good. It's very like, It's almost like the guy who wrote this knew what was coming next.
I'm Weekend at Bernie's, he said.
I do not approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate exotic fruit. Touch it and the bloom is gone. The whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England, at any rate, education produces no effect whatsoever. It's a real burial. Yeah.
I feel like he maybe had some opinions of things.
Maybe he did. I don't like novels that end happily. They depress me so much.
Pithy.
Yes, pithy is the word here.
Pithy.
To be born, or at any rate bred, in a handbag, whether it had handles or not, seems to me to display a contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life that reminds one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution.
Ooh. What do you mean by that?
You'll have to ask Lady Bracknell, I think.
Oh, shit.
I know, she's not with us anymore.
Oh. Well, that's good. She was kind of an old bag.
And I think my standout performance is the woman who plays Gwendolyn, Joan Greenwood. She has this like particular delivery of all her lines. I think she's like, wow, you've grown so fetching. He's like, I like to grow in many directions. And then like later on, it's like, I think Jax turns to Gwendolyn, wait here for me. And she's like, if you're not too long, I will wait here for you all my life. Yeah.
Gwendolyn's a little different in the remake,
which you should tell us all about.
Okay, so you want to hear about this fucking remake, Jarrett?
I would love to.
Okay, so I already told you that I wasn't super huge on this importance of being Earnest. So there's this dude named Oliver Parker. He did the Johnny English movies. He's done Othello. He's done some kind of Dorian Gray remake. So he's got a group. He made a 2002 remake of this thing with Colin Firth, Reese Witherspoon, Judi Dench as Miss Bracknell,
Dame Judi Dench,
Tom Wilkinson, and Frances O'Connor as Gwendolyn. She was in like The Conjuring and shit like that. She's a nice lady. And then there's the other guy, Rupert Everett, who is the top bill as Algernon, who I've never seen before. Oh, he was the bad guy in Inspector Gadget 2.
Yeah, you don't know Rupert Everett? Man,
I don't know.
I've even heard of that guy.
I don't know him. So anyways, it's basically a total straight remake of this because it's the full script. It's just the normal screenplay.
It's another production of it.
Yep. And it is a period piece, so it's 1890s.
Yeah.
But Jarrett, they do add some 2000s flair to this thing.
The one thing I read is that the film brings in some elements that were edited out of the original play.
How would they know that though?
Well, because there's like he wrote stuff down.
Oh, okay.
And so they apparently, but who knows what they changed up to like flare it up? But like apparently they did modify. There's some things that were brought in this time
as
around.
An unknowing viewer, the things that were modified seemed like 2000s editions. So like the biggest one was when they confront the lady about the handbag, the orphan in the handbag, there's like a chase scene. The lady runs away and it's played up like an action thing. She's like taken off and is like, where did she go? We gotta get her. And they're like running after her. And I was like, what is this?
How long does that scene go on for?
Like 2 minutes.
Well, it's kind of like Royal Tenenbaums with Ben Stiller. Yeah, see, it's all farce, RJ. See,
so there's that, and then so as I mentioned, the Gwendolyn. So she is a nymphomaniac in the remake, like total. And she's real hot into it. So all the things when she's talking about how her dream was to be married to a guy named Earnest, she's like, my dream. Like lip quiver and stuff. She's like, was a man named Earnest, and she's like all sweaty and shit. And you're like, why is this lady freaking out so bad? So they really kind of play it up. And then there's a scene where she gets the name Earnest tattooed on her ass, which I don't know if it wasn't like a guitar string with pen ink. It wasn't old school tattooing. It was an actual tattoo gun, like a pen. And I was like, did they have that 130 years ago? I really don't think so, but I don't know the history of tattoos, so I could be wrong.
What in the world?
So she gets Earnest tattooed on her butt. So they like, there's things like that. It's like a little bit more exaggerated. So Gwendolyn's a nymphomaniac. Judi Dench is like, I don't know, she's Judi Dench in this. She's fine. Colin Firth and whatever his name is,
Rupert
they're fine
Everett?
too. They have they try to have a nice musical embrace of the women after the tea confrontation.
Yeah.
They like try to like serenade them outside with like a ukulele and a piano. It's nothing. It doesn't matter. That tea confrontation isn't. This one's nowhere near the original. The original, I think, really sets it up well. This one, it's pretty bad. It was like, I don't like sugar in my tea. It's out of fashion now. And Reese Witherspoon really like slowly puts in cubes and cubes and cubes. It's like, I liked it in the 50s version when that bitch just grabs a whole handful of sugar, dumps that shit in the other girl's tea. She's like, take that, you old crusty bag. I was like, yeah. some petty stuff that I can get behind.
Mm-hmm.
So the tea scene's not as good. The cake looks horrible too. Like it's not like fruit cake, but it's like the density of a normal cake, but there's like all these like nuts and berries in it. I was like, what the fuck kind of cake is this? I'm not on board with this. I got a lot of cake opinions. If you're interested, you can email in and I will tell you my cake opinions in the preamble. Okay. So the remake, Jarrett, it's a movie. That's there.
That's it.
Yep. And I don't know. I'm pretty lukewarm on the this normal movie as it is, but it's like I said, it's not any fault of its own. I think it's well written. Oscar Wilde's a smart guy. It's not really for me. So whatever.
Nice.
Yep.
Hey, want to hear about some people who hate this film?
Sure.
Well, RJ, half a star from Morgie the Corgi. This is from just this year, too.
Ooh.
Wait, this is a cinematic masterpiece? Shit on my face and smear it in, please.
Strong politics.
Yeah.
His only other half star is Hereditary, but his favorite films include The Godfather Part 2, Perks of Being a Wallflower, The Pursuit of Happiness with your buddy Will Smith, and the new movie My Friend Dahmer from 2 years ago. Other 5-star affairs include movies that no one cares about.
Cool.
We got Fight Club, Star is Born, whatever.
Cool. I don't know if anyone was calling this one a cinematic masterpiece. As we've learned,
I've never heard that.
Just because it's in the Criterion doesn't mean it's a masterpiece. That's for sure. Casper L, 1.5 stars. Dated. It's a faithful adaptation, but I don't like the play either.
Hey, guess what trend we've seen this week? Guess what else Casper L's favorite movie is? Or that's not how you phrase that. Guess what Casper L also has as a favorite movie?
Fight Club.
Fight Club. You got it, baby. Also, City of God, Primer, and Mulholland Drive. So my feeling, Mulholland Drive, my feeling is that this person is maybe 20 years old and they're making their rounds through big popular movies. They also gave 5 stars to fucking Call Me By Your Name. And like, I don't know, lots of Criterions. They could be listening to this. So if they are, Call Me By Your Name is not a 5-star movie. Neither is Boyhood. Come on, guys.
And finally, Deborah Hart, 2 stars. I only watched 1/3 of the movie, but I'm never going to finish it. Reading the play twice is enough entertainment for me, but it's still a cute little movie that portrays the play nicely.
So, more overlap, not the same as last time. Favorite films include Call Me By Your Name, a movie that is not good. Little Miss Sunshine, that's a good show. Blue Jay, I don't know what that is. Stuck in Love with your favorite actor, Jarrett, Greg Kinnear. That movie's okay. It features a cameo from Mr. Stephen King. But other 5-star affairs include 3 Billboards, Jeff Who Lives at Home. That's a horrible fucking movie.
Oh, yeah.
That movie is not good, you guys. Heathers, 5 stars? Come on. Quiet Place. Fucking... whatever. These are the hot loose 5 stars. Not even worth talking about.
Yeah.
They're crazy, these things. But Call Me By Your Name and Fight Club apparently are the fans who hate this thing.
Well, there you have it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'd say that your mileage may vary with this film. I don't think there's anything that like jumps out at me as far as like, whoa, you got to go out of your way to watch this. I would say you should read some Oscar Wilde if you haven't. Enriching your life. That Dorian Gray is a great novel. No book or no movie is going to be as good as that, because it's like, for me, the act of reading it is like so great because you get to really like appreciate the writing. And like in movie form, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a big fan of plays like as like a drama like I just can't take it. I can't handle people's acting in real life. It's often the worst.
I've gone to a couple.
How do you rate plays?
So the last one I went to was a university production of Stephen King's Carrie.
Oh.
It was a musical, Jarrett.
Uh-huh.
It was okay. I've probably gone to 5 plays in my life. A couple of them were mandatory through school events, and some of them are not very good. However, the school I'm at right now, they just did, the middle school did a production of The Greatest Showman, and it was pretty fucking wild. It was. I was going to watch that movie now because I was like, holy shit, some hot stuff. So
a friend of mine listens to that soundtrack all the time, I guess.
I've been listening to it for the last 2 weeks.
Fascinating.
Anyways, what are we talking about?
Nothing, because we're done. We're out of here.
Okay, good.
We get the girls, and we learned the importance of being creeps. It doesn't work as well.
Get the girls?
Yeah, we did all right.
Are you talking about us or about other people?
We're talking about corpse.
That's preamble stuff, man. People don't know what you're talking about.
That's fine. Tune in. Just go to SoundCloud.
Hey, why don't you like us on iTunes?
You jerks.
People say that's a big thing. Yeah, I'm talking about that now. Do it.